So I'm directing the Fuel Choices and Smart Mobility Initiative within the Prime Minister's office. And the reason it's in the Prime Minister's office shows the engagement and the emphasis that the government of Israel put on this sector. Now, what is smart mobility other than a buzzword for a lot of us? It's about moving people and goods in the most efficient, safe, affordable, and clean way. Now, behind smart mobility, there are 4 global megatrends, which is connected transportation, shared transportation, autonomous transportation, and electric transportation. So there's a lot of connected there and a lot of database. And the reasons the governments across the world put emphasis on this is because there's a lot of benefits from it. It lowers traffic jams, congestion, it lowers road accidents, air pollutions. So there's a lot of activities around the world in this, both on R&D and also in implementations. So everything is good, and it sounds wonderful, and we can achieve and benefit from smart mobility a lot. But along with technological advances comes a lot of challenges. And in smart mobility, there's a statement, everything is connected to everything, and when the word connections and data appear in a sentence, it's a little problematic. So I'm not sure how many of you saw the last Johnny English film. Johnny English is the Ron Atkinson film. Anyways, what this film is about in a nutshell is that Johnny English must save the world from a terrorist, from an attack. But the thing is that in the movie, this isn't your ordinary terrorist. He's not a bomber, or he's not a gunner or something like that. He doesn't even have kites bombing, but he's a tech billionaire. And he's attacking straight from his Silicon-based villa. And what is the attack about? It's about gaining the data from nations and countries across the world. That's the attack, getting over data. Now, he even says in the film how happy he is about data. Data is power, I want data. So as you see, this new film is about a cyber attack. Autonomous transportation, or smart mobility, is part of the whole smart mobility. And whether it's on land, on sea, or in the air, it's a lot of benefits, as I said, and it's a mega industry, and it's a revolution, technological revolution with a lot of benefits, and it will influence the way we live, the way we work, the way we move. But we're facing through it increasing challenges in security and safety. And to help us talk about this, I would like to call my distinguished panel members, Mr. Derek Hoke, Chief Executive Officer of Airbus Defense and Space, please. Mr. Jacob Mendel, Head of Research Corporation with the industry at the ICRC Tel Aviv University from Israel. Mr. Ruben Santamarta, Principal Consultant at IO Active, sorry for that, from Spain. And Mr. Yochai Korem, VP EMEA at Cyberbit. Please join me. So, Derek, Airbus is now getting into the whole smart transportation, and we can see that through its collaboration with Audi, speaking about end-to-end solution of transportation. I want you to take us for a second, the whole audience, a couple of years ahead, let's say 2030, and give us a scenario of how you as Airbus see this future in mobility landscape.
Yeah, before I take us to 2030, I would like to look at how it looks like in 2018. And this is something I experience almost every day because I travel extensively. I'm 80–90% on the road, and either in a car or in a plane. And I've lived on 5 continents, lived in cities like Buenos Aires, Paris, and Beijing. And in Beijing, when you go through peak hours, you're faster on your foot than in a car, because you go below 6 kilometers an hour, so you can easily walk aside the cars. So this is still the reality, and before we really look at how this looks in the future, it is what we deal every day. And if I count the...
This is Beijing? I thought it was Tel Aviv, actually.
This is not, but I said,
Oh.
but it's everywhere.
Yeah,
big cities,
it's
yeah.
everywhere, exactly.
I was last week flying to London, and it took me an hour to fly into London, and I had 1 hour calculated for the transport to my meeting, which was a 1 hour meeting, and it took me 2 hours. I came just 10 minutes before my meeting ended, so 2 hours to go into the city, 1 hour to go into the city, and 2 hours just on the streets. 2 hours back, so it took me 6 hours for then a less than an hour meeting in order just to bypass these kind of things. And that's, you see, that's a reality. And on aircrafts, we see a very fast development. We still, in the last 30 years, we looked at a quadrupling the air traffic. 1958 was the first time that more people used a plane to cross the Atlantic than a boat. And this after even the brothers Wright, they said when they were first time flying, they said, we will never fly over the Atlantic because there's no engine, there's no technology to fly 4 days in a row. So we have advanced tremendously over the decades. We see it will continue. We predict that in every 15 years, air traffic will double. So this is only for commercial aircraft. But of course, we look also at, looking at 2030, hopefully our world looks again like this, because we believe should be a lot more choices in the future. Technology is advancing fast, and you might have heard about the project that we run with Audi, with Pop-Up. We have also other demonstrators currently in development. In the Silicon Valley, we run a demonstrator called Vahana. It's a vertical takeoff, lift, and horizontal moving. We have, hopefully in the next 3 weeks, we will fly for the first time our City Airbus, which is the development of my Airbus helicopter colleagues, where we will start at the beginning to have still a pilot on board and 4 passengers, but already preparing for autonomous flights in the future. So we see that currently we look at remote sensing, we look at last mile cargo delivery, and we look at flying taxis. So we see a lot of new technology that's come into our urbanized areas where we can improve our lives and we can make it more easy also to have your choice. Because today we believe in order to have the right job, we need to move into a city. But once you have these kind of choices, you can live easily 100 kilometers away from the city center and still be on time for work. Because my last job before I changed to Airbus, I was living only 14 kilometers away from my factory, and it took me every morning an hour. 14 kilometers. I can run the same speed to my work. So we hope this world will look like this again, and we will provide the technology in order to go in this direction.
So you're actually adding the sky as another dimension to mobility and hoping to give people seamless mobility, end-to-end products, which is great. But if this scenario was really to exist, will it be safe in this era of the cyber threats and everything? Is it a safe era?
No, we have to, of course, we start with the design. We have to build cybersecurity inside our products down to the lowest level, and we discussed this before we came in. It's trust-based economy, and all our not only on aerospace, but in all our other areas, we're building on trust. Be it our financial system, be it our governments, it's based on trust, and this is the same for aerospace.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I go 10 kilometers up in the air, when I take a flight, and whether I know or not, if it's an autopilot, I feel pretty safe. I'm pretty sure. I mean, where does that sense of security come from? And
with all respect, once a pilot takes over the steering, you feel it normally when you land harder a bit than normal than it was probably when the pilot took over the control. So the autopilots are pretty nicely.
When we are talking about airplanes, I think your safe feeling coming first of all from the knowledge that you know in the front sitting a person. This is one thing. But on the other thing, the most dangerous part of the airplane is the pilot. Because whatever we will put there from security, safety, cyber, the pilot still can be the weakest point in the airplane from your safety perspective. But if we are taking this to another dimension about the hardware root of trust, when you build such a complex system like an airplane, there are so many electronic parts inside. And when a company builds this, they need to know that each component is secure and the whole system is also. So you need to really build for each device the security and make sure that it's not only has been designed from ground base with security and cyber in mind, but you can verify this. Because without verification, you just buy something in a black box.
Exactly, but I mean, when I think of it, that the sense of security for me is that I have this, like you say, trust in a whole ecosystem of the person the company that built the bus, the company who operates the bus, I don't know, the different engineers working and the technology providers. So it's been going on for like so many years now, and it's a well-trusted system that acts upon codes and standards. And finally, when I go to the transportation sector, the land transportation sector, there's new entrants, there's new stakeholders, there are new people playing and making and integrating products, even navigation systems into the vehicles. And I don't know if I can trust that. And I want to ask you guys, how do we make those components or let the companies understand that they must prioritize safety and security before integrating into the vehicles?
Well, I think in the previous conversation, the sense of trust comes from the knowledge that everything is working fine, because every year we have millions of flights. But here the problem is that what happens if something happens sometime? That may be an inflection point, and that may change the way we live, or the way we take a flight, or the way we see transportation. So I think right now, from our side, companies are knocking at our door to secure all the components that are that can be found in a complex device or a complex system like an aircraft or a vessel or a vehicle. So I think that's important, the proactivity to know that if something happens, that may change everything.
Let's take it to another dimension. We talk about airplanes, let's talk about a little bit automotive. Why should companies in this domain will invest in cybersecurity? The first topic is that they are today mostly invest in safety. This is more important for them. Cybersecurity, and discussed previously, they will wait until there will be a major attack on cars before they invest really on cybersecurity for cars. So if they want, they first invest to the safety of the cars, the safety of the population and the people in the streets. Later, they will invest in cybersecurity. The infotainment system is known that it's hackable. Everyone here, we have a hacker in the panel.
He's the hacker. He's the guy we should be afraid of.
He can explain us about all the vulnerability that there are in the infotainment system. But is it going to influence my brakes when I need to stop the car? This is the question. And if there is a mechanism for the safety, this is where the companies invest today.
I think companies see that a potential destructive of a cyber attack could ruin the business and the reputation, hence investing a lot. Of course, when you have a smart car and it's been attacked, what do you tell the driver while he's in the car? You've been attacked, call 911, or should you put a stop engine failure, generic message to put in the side? I think with the smart mobility moving forward, you will see transformation of new companies coming into this world, right? And then the question is what pushed them to be more cybersecurity? So companies like Airbus, safety, cybersecurity is in their DNA. And we have a lot of regulation that supports that. When we're going to smart buses, right, to railways, to ships, etc., who is putting the regulation there? And there's a question, if no one pushes the regulation, who is the awareness? I think one of the biggest problems in the industry today is that there are not enough cybersecurity professionals to start designing and thinking with cybersecurity in mind. I think half of the cybersecurity population of Israel are now in this room who's left to handle events. So I think as we're moving with smart mobility, the government on one hand, as you represent that side, needs to push, educate, regulate, just like there is in safety on one hand, verify that new companies are entering to this domain are aware of this topic, but also provide the manpower to be able to handle it. I'm sure for DIG, for example, to hire cybersecurity people in Germany, because I try myself, is very, very difficult to find good ones. And you need a lot of people in order to create new connected cards, connected chips, etc., etc.
Regarding regulation, we need to know, especially in the area of cybersecurity, that the regulator is always late after the technology. So until the regulator act after, not before, unfortunately. So this is one thing. Secondly, yes, you're absolutely right. Expert in this domain is very hard to find. Yes, we are lucky in Israel, we have a lot of experts in cybersecurity, but the majority of the industry for automotive is not in Israel yet.
You were already talking about the attacks and the technology against us, but I want to take you a little back. First, I want to understand who those attackers are, and what are the motivations for that? Who's the malicious players? Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that in this scenario we have to take into account something, that it's the motivation and the capabilities. So the capabilities can actually, the capabilities stay, but the motivation can change overnight. So what happens if someone is able to hack into a vessel or into a car, but that person or that group or that nation state doesn't have the motivation to launch this attack and create a destructive payload or any other kind of attack? Well, they have the ability, the technical ability to perform the attack, but they don't have the motivation. If that motivation changes, then we have a problem. So the point here is to try to raise the security level to a point where it's impractical to perform this kind of technical attack that is probably easier to perform a human attack or other kind of attacks.
But who are we afraid of? Who are these terrorists? Is it like I said,
Yeah.
is it like the tech billionaire, or is it some kind of people in a garage? Like, we always say startups raised from the Silicon Valley garages. Are we also looking at a couple of guys in a garage doing a hacking, or is it something more on an organized level?
Let's take a real example for mobility. So in, I think, November 16, the San Francisco Metro was hacked, right? They wanted money. So I think...
that was their motivation, yeah.
That was their motivation. And, I tell a story. Usually I have one of my employees come and told me I have a problem with my son. He's 14 years old. I said, what parental advice I can give you? My oldest is 9 now. I don't know teenagers that well yet. So he hacked into his neighbor router. I said, okay, so what's the problem? He said, I don't know if to say, well done, you're on the right way to the IDF, right? Or don't do it again, it's illegal. The availability of creating attacks just because you want to shut down the Spotify of your neighbors because they're doing it too loud and they want to go to sleep, real story, is there. So I think that one of the problems with the transportation world, it left cybersecurity a little bit behind. And hacker, when they want to make money, and this is one part of the motivation, they are looking where it's easiest, so where it's easiest to hack, So if the neighbor is more secure and you're not, that's the problem. Maybe just one last example. We're been approached by a shipping company in Hamburg that creates a system for engines, etc. And they are afraid, with a real reason behind it, that the new pirates, they don't need to go anymore and take control, and put a guy into the captain. They can just take control of the systems because everything is connected today for preventive maintenance and fleet management, etc.
I think one very important thing is, of course, financial benefits are very strong motivation for hackers. Let's see, every ransomware is asking for money. Normally they ask for bitcoins, but think about cyber war. When we will move to nice environment, clean, green, that everything is with drones, electronic buses, no drivers, safety on the roads, what will happen with cyber war? You just talk about the Metropolitan attack. Imagine yourself, someone in London can shut down the entire, in 2030, the entire transportation by a cyber attack. You don't need a war. Just shut down the transportation, and this will generate much more chaos than in the real bombing a city. This is the thing that need to be protected. So for a company like Airbus that they have in mind the cybersecurity, it will be easier when they build a new aircraft. But for companies which are building basic elementary for the big population of cars, this is a very big challenge.
Go ahead.
This is
Yeah.
the more we live in such an integrated, connected world, of course, the higher the risk that a central system can be hacked. Because if we want to have a life like that, we need autonomous driving, autonomous flying, and they need to be all controlled in a controlled system. Because once we let humans interact, we always create traffic jams and so on. We did create additional congestion, which is not needed. Having a world like that needs interconnected systems, intermodalities that are all connected to each other. But of course, with that, the risk of attacks is increasing. And this is something we need to build into the systems from day one. And I think the advantage that we have today is that we know about the potential attacks, we know where the risks are coming from, and we have to design it into the system from the beginning.
There's a nice story, I'm sure it's real, that 2 engineers were fired from San Francisco municipality, and as a revenge, they decided to change the timing of 2 stoplights in downtown San Francisco. And for weeks, no one understood why there's so much traffic jams all around, just, small timing. Now, when we talk about smart mobility, a lot of the systems we use today are not in a central control of companies like Airbus or the government. They're in control of companies, municipalities, etc. And as we have more and more cars that are connecting with the traffic lights, understanding how to create the flow, we're getting more and more organizations that are related to that. So when we look at 2013, we need to start on 2010 actually, deciding which organization could dramatically affect, like stoplights. And of course, they didn't know it was, it was not a hack, but no one identified the problem. They didn't have the mechanism, procedures, the people to understand who is asking today, who is handling the traffic light system in Tel Aviv, how easy it is to be accessed, and in other cities around, and we know that 1 hour change could stop out the entire country in Israel for a day.
So the risks are not just on the vehicles themselves, but also on the whole infrastructure and the whole ecosystem. But I want to ask you guys, how do we ensure those systems are resilient against the attacks? If it's that easy, you say, to hack into your neighbor's Spotify, and for those 2 people that got fired, to hack into the transportation system of the city. So how do we make those systems resilient?
So if we look about building a secure product, in the end of the day, an airplane is a very complex system. Normally, we define this as system of systems. This is how airplane is, because every component is very complicated, and the integration is much more complicated. So normally, there are what we call best practice. We start with a very talented engineers, which understand security, but they should also have the other side. The other side normally, for example, in hardware or software, is the qualification group. But in security, it's not like this. You need to have a special security validation group which knows exactly to act like hackers while they are building their products, and then the developers coming back and said, look, we are able to so-called penetrate them. They need to act like hackers during this process. And when the product is ready or semi-ready, they need to go to a full penetration test. And even after that, it's not done. Because before you launch the product, you need to do a full qualification of the cyber before it's going to be there. Because when you go to the airplane, you want to feel safe, right? So the question is...
Until today, I felt safe, by the way.
You should. I'm flying tonight, so I feel safe, hopefully. So the thing is, in the end of the day, you need to really do a real attack on the device. So normally, you go to a hacker and show, here is a car, please hack it as a service. And then you can assume, there is no full bulletproof here, that it has been really checked to the maximum knowledge that you have today, and the system inside the car will be probably able to handle the near future unknown attacks.
Maybe too, so how can we be secure, right? I think there are, in this mobility and transportation, there's a lot of regulation, and that's very important because that drives organization to invest energy, efforts, and money in doing that. When there are new organizations coming, creating new innovative technologies, you want to verify they have the innovation, they are moving quickly, but in the right framework. Second, you want to have, again, legacy system being protected. Let me repeat the story that the CISO of the Israeli Railway said in a similar panel I was with him. He gave an example of a pollution control system they have in the Israeli railway stations. So there's a system, because of regulation of the Ministry of Environmental, to verify that the stations are not too polluted. Unfortunately, these systems are connected to the internet. No one thought that this is a critical system in the transportation world. Hackers were able to hack in and very simple bit mining and use those CPUs to help solve the cryptocurrency problem. And what happened suddenly that the monitoring system showed the wrong values into the level that shows that the central station in Tel Aviv is polluted, which immediately moved into an emergency situation and evacuate everyone from the station. This is a small example of legacy systems. There are many legacy systems that some of them are safety, they are a little bit more control, like signaling and railways, but all the way to the traffic lights, to the manufacturing, etc. Let's start with getting them secure, and with this, put additional manpower with knowledge, having the training, the qualification, the up-to-date level of knowledge related to cybersecurity, so the new products they are building will be better than the one I gave example now.
What you and Jacob are saying is we need to educate and make expertise, and we need to educate people to be hackers. That's what I get out of part of what you're saying. Is
It's not that we need to teach everybody to be a hacker. We need to put in the mindset of the senior management level in the companies that cybersecurity is like they have a department for marketing, for sales, for engineering. They need to have a department for cybersecurity. Defense specifically for their products.
But I'm sorry, Dirk, but we talked about this before. Is it on their top priority? I mean, do they know that this is a real threat, or will they wait until either their company or even better another company will get some kind of attack and then say, okay, well, I must invest in this in a better way, and maybe I will have a department for cybersecurity?
This is a very, very good question, because normally companies today and senior management, their top investment is start according to regulation. What is the regulation that I need to fulfill in the market that I'm selling this product? I need to be qualified to according to this regulation, otherwise I will not be able to sell anything. Now, between the regulation and the business, there is the competition. I need to be at least equal, if not a little bit better than my competition. But then start, what is the gap? Where I need to protect myself? How much to invest more on top of that? Where I see the ROI on it? What happened to my reputation if there will be an attack? This is the area where the CEO need to be in place to take the decision, and normally the gaps are fulfilled today by cyber insurance.
Now we need to train our teams and people on a different level than we have done in the past, because also, especially now, we have, at least when I see my kids, they acknowledge all the regulations very fast because they want to get to an app that someone recommended them. But then they go into companies, they work in secure areas, and they have this in mind. So we have to train them that most of the attacks are always looking for the weakest point. And most of the time, humans are the weakest points in attacking a company. And then even if you secure your company, then it might be of your sub-supplier or the sub-sub-supplier who is the weakest point. So you have not only to secure your own ecosystem, but you have to, the broader ecosystem as a whole has to be checked and penetrated all the time in order to secure that we have security in design and in the whole ecosystem that creates the business.
Okay, so as a last question to all of you, whoever wants to jump in, you said the sub-supplier. So when we go to the sub-supplier, or apparently to the startups working, and in Israel we have 550 companies within the smart mobility arena. A couple of them are in cybersecurity, but most of them, have the sensors, the chips, all of those things that could be also hacked, the connected. So what do you recommend to our 550 smart mobility startups in order to increase the safety and the security of the end user using apparently that device that will be sold to tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, and eventually to integrate into the vehicle. What is your recommendation to these startup companies?
I then understand that if you're not thinking that day one, when you want to sell the company to a company like Airbus, or at least if you want to work with Airbus, they will ask you, what have you done in cybersecurity? What is the secure development
Will you ask him today?
Yeah, we will. We have to, not only in cybersecurity, we will look how they designed the product. We will look which components they used, because we have to have full traceability of all the products that go into our systems or system.
So maybe it's not in the DNA of Israelis, right, to work procedure-wise and everything planned, and maybe we improvise a little bit more. But at the end of the day, if you want to work in the smart mobility arena, it is a must-have, and I recommend to employ people with this way of thinking and experience. So not only just the best C++ developer, right, or Java, but also people with secure development in mind that have some certificate, some knowledge about this. So when they're ready, you can show and really move quickly to the real business point that you want to make.
I think they should take security seriously, because from the very beginning, because maybe it's a good idea, it's a good product, but then from the security perspective, it doesn't work, and that can ruin an entire company, and so that's important.
No, we see more and more companies going into the aerospace environment. In the past, you see it has been on the large aircraft, there's been a duopoly. Now then on the smaller aircrafts, a few more companies, and then it was it. Now we see urban air mobility, we see startups popping up around the world. And they're very proud that they did it very fast, that they used off-the-shelf components, but this is of course the risk. They are not experienced aerospace companies, they have not industrialized components, they have not built cybersecurity design into their products from day one, they have not the traceability that other experienced companies have. So this is something that when we go through certification and regulation in the future, will have to be looked at, and in order to, as we said at the beginning, in order to continue to have a trust-based development that will enable us to create the vision that we saw before.
I think for my experience, I did 2 exits in my life, so I think that for startup companies, I will recommend to focus on 2 things, and in this order. First of all, build a strong business case for your activities. And then, build the best, but best-in-class worldwide technology. If you concentrate on those, then you will be successful. And companies like Airbus or any other will be by you.
So I just want to summarize that Dirk presented us a very nice picture of 2030 with a lot of benefits. There's a lot of advantages there that actually we could overcome and could achieve them, because smart mobility, the way it's pictured to be, the influences in the future, has a lot of benefits. Again, no, we didn't see any traffic jams in the 2030 portrait, no traffic jams, less air pollution, less road accidents. We want to reach it. And in order to overcome these challenges, first of all, the big companies, the Airbus and the automotive companies, the BMW, the Audis, and all of that have to take into consideration the safety and security and prioritize that. Even, like you said, have a division that is strongly focused on that. And the end user needs to know that he's entering a system that is trustworthy. And for those of you who are in the smart mobility startup sector, you have to take into consideration from day one that your product will eventually be safe and secure. So thank you so much for this interesting panel, and thank you for listening to us. Have a good day.